We have the Iranian Revolutionary Government that says that Israel, the Jewish state, is a colonialist state. Yet the government of Iran, since 1979, has been colonizing the entire Middle East, from Tehran to Beirut to Yemen. So when they tell us this, they just tell us about themselves. But the second thing is perhaps much more important, which is simply to turn around to the death cults, to the people who support the groups like Hamas and so on, and you say, you know what? Fine. We do love life. And it's not our weakness. It is our greatest strength and has been for thousands of years and will be for thousands of years more to come. And that when the people like Hamas and Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad have gone the same way as Pharaoh, the Jewish people will still be there to say, I shall not die, but I shall live.
Guys, yesterday Douglas Murray was invited to UN Watch and he gave us a hint on the Israel-Iran war. He made everyone understand the twist behind everything. He also spoke about many other things, such as the banning of the burqas in France and other European countries who supports terrorist organizations like Hezbollah, Hamas, and more. We will show you the full interview here, so watch till end, subscribe for more updates.
Anti-Semitism, that it tells you nothing about the Jewish people, but it tells you everything about the person who suffers from it. The person who suffers from anti-Semitism, when they talk about the Jews, just tells you about themselves. Grossman gives the obvious example, obvious at the time, that the Nazis accused the Jewish people of being racists who wanted to take over the world. It's almost like a form of projection, you could say, isn't it? But in our own era, this same thing is the case. We have the Iranian Revolutionary Government that says that Israel, the Jewish state, is a colonialist state. Yet the government of Iran, since 1979, has been colonizing the entire Middle East, from Tehran to Beirut to Yemen. So when they tell us this, they just tell us about themselves. Does 1 year to the next, do our streets get filled up with rage-filled individuals screaming for the liberation of northern Cyprus? No. But Erdogan has told us about himself. But here's the one that I've most passionate that people sort of realize, is that when you see the critics outside of the Middle East who get off on this anti-Israelism, always they tell us about themselves. Look at the accusations, for instance, that they lob against the IDF. We heard again the other month the claim that IDF soldiers rush into Gaza and immediately rape women. I will not go into the number of ways in which this is preposterous, but this allegation is made by people who believe that women who were raped on October the 7th deserved it because they were Jews, or deserved it because they were Jews and it didn't happen, or something else. They say that the Israelis are baby killers, yet they will come out on the streets of their cities to support the killing of Jewish babies. They only ever tell us about themselves. So I wish people exercise this more often.
What should people in this room be doing? And I have to add in there that it was from a video, a clip of you on YouTube, where you said to the interviewer, when they make these baseless accusations, they're not saying it because they believe it's true. They're saying it because they want to hurt you.
Oh yeah, that's definitely the case. I mean, why are the routine smears against Israel, for instance, that it is setting up concentration camps, that it is setting up the Warsaw Ghetto, that it is creating a genocide or a Holocaust? These are all simply constructed as ways to wound Jews and friends of Jews as much as possible. That's all. It's a low, ugly tactic, but that's all there is. Well, there is a lot that people like people in this room can do. A huge amount. First of all, of course, by supporting the work of our excellent organization, UN Watch. But secondly, by doing everything you can in your lives to push back against it and to make sure that your children and your friends are resilient in the face of this madness. You know, there's a poem by W.H. Auden I'm very fond of, September the 1st, 1939, where the poet writes, "All I have is a voice to undo the folded lie." But a voice is not nothing. And if you use yours in the time you have well, you could undo an awful lot of folded lies. And I think we can do so together.
All these all these international bodies institutionalized anti-Semitism that UN Watch tries to fight against. But I walked up to somebody in the street in Zurich, where I live, who was taking hands out for Amnesty International. And I tried to tell the volunteer that she works for a compromised organization. Most of our friends believe that they're not compromised.
Come from elsewhere, but UN Watch and others have demonstrated for years the way in which the system is corrupt. And we all know that, of course. Talk about, for instance, Jewish money and Jewish influence in, for instance, American politics. If you look at all of the funding that has ever been used for lobbying by, I don't know, AIPAC or anyone else, it's a fraction of what the Qataris spend in an average month.
Yeah.
So they say things like, we do not want foreign involvement in our politics. And you go, interesting. How are you getting on with the Qataris? We will not tolerate... they do. They just have an obsession with Jews and Israel. But the way to reveal that is just to keep on revealing it. I mean, it's not like this isn't a target-rich environment to expose hypocrisy and human stupidity.
I've spent far too much time on Twitter, and it used to wound me a lot more. It's not easy to do. It's almost like you need training for it. But I need to move on because our time is coming to accustions being torn down. And this guy, Os Guinness, I discovered him recently, he spoke at something called ARC in London. He says that we're at a civilizational turning point. But you always come out optimistic. When I listen to those,
not always. Yeah. Often.
Where goes Western civilization from here? Just my prophet.
The one thing I do know is that you always have a set of choices in front of you, and the hour is never as late as some people will argue that it is. I finished this book on a very positive note, actually, as anyone who's read it will know. Some years ago, when I wrote my book, The Strange Death of Europe, I discovered that one of the most common reader responses was people said that was an extremely depressing book to read. And I would generally say, well, you should have tried writing it. I just would love to share with you, which is that one of the things that disturbed me most in the aftermath of the 7th was the sheer lack of human empathy for what the people of Israel went through that day. About 6 months after the 7th, there were two young people who were survivors of the Nova Party. And they landed in England, in Manchester, at the airport. And they were there to raise funds and awareness for post-traumatic stress disorder in the survivors of terrorist attacks. And they were detained at Manchester Airport by British guards who said, among other things, we need to make sure you're not going to try to do here what you're doing in Gaza. And I was just so horrified again and again like that. In New York, the Nova exhibition, the memorial exhibition, opened in New York, and there was a man who lost his daughters at the Nova party who had to walk through a crowd on the New York streets chanting for Intifada and praising Hamas. Now to be somebody who goes through that and to keep yourself together, that's real courage, that's real heroism. But I've tried the counterfactual a lot of times. Imagine if a survivor of the Bataclan massacre, but I've tried the counterfactual a lot of times. Imagine if a survivor of the Bataclan massacre or the Manchester Arena suicide bombing went abroad. Everywhere they'd be greeted only with sympathy, only with understanding and love and care. Yet something has happened that means that the people of Israel are deemed by a large number of people as being uniquely undeserving of these things. Well, as I say in the book, there is a challenge which the people who attacked Paris, who have attacked London, who've attacked multiple European cities, who attacked New York, and who attacked Israel always say. They always have some variant of this line, we love death more than you love life. Hassan Nasrallah famously said repeatedly, the problem with the Jews is that they love life, and this is their weakness. And the jihadists always say this about the West as a whole. They say that we're just people who love life. And I spent years thinking, what do you do in the face of hate like that? What do you do in the face of something so evil? And I realized that, and I said at the end of this book, there is an answer. And in my observation, the people of Israel have provided the answer. Firstly, of course, you make sure that if people like Hassan Nasrallah love death so much, they get it. But the second thing is perhaps much more important, which is simply to turn around to the death cults, to the people who support the groups like Hamas and so on, and you say, you know what? Fine. We do love life. And it's not our weakness. It is our greatest strength and has been for thousands of years and will be for thousands of years more to come. And that when the people like Hamas and Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad have gone the same way as Pharaoh, the Jewish people will still be there to say, I shall not die, but I shall live.
Murray began by addressing the historical and geopolitical context of the Israel-Iran war. He highlighted how regional tensions are not merely about territorial disputes, but are deeply rooted in ideological differences and power struggles. His analysis emphasized the role of various state and non-state actors in exacerbating these conflicts, drawing attention to how countries like Iran support terrorist organizations such as Hezbollah and Hamas. This support, he argued, is a significant factor fueling instability in the region and poses a threat not only to Israel, but to global security at large. In addition to discussing the Israel-Iran war, Murray touched on the socio-political climate in Europe, particularly regarding the recent bans on burqas in France and other European nations. He articulated the tensions that arise from cultural integration and the challenges faced by societies grappling with the balance between freedom of expression and societal values. Murray's perspective on this issue sparked a lively discussion about the implications of such bans on Muslim communities and the broader societal discourse around religious symbols in public spaces. Furthermore, Murray didn't shy away from criticizing European countries that he believes have turned a blind eye to the threats posed by terrorist organizations. He asserted that by failing to confront these groups directly, some nations inadvertently enable the very ideologies that threaten their own safety and stability. His remarks resonated with many in the audience who expressed concern over the rise of extremism in Europe and the need for a more proactive stance against terrorism. As the discussion progressed, Murray encouraged attendees to remain vigilant and informed about these pressing issues. He underscored the importance of understanding the global ramifications of local conflicts and the interconnectedness of today's geopolitical landscape. For those who couldn't attend, we invite you to watch the full interview, where Murray delves deeper into these topics. His insights are not only provocative, but essential for anyone seeking to understand the complexities of modern geopolitics. Don't forget to subscribe for more updates and discussions on critical global issues.